Gary, I wanted to give you a chance to really respond to a direct message that we got. We touched on it briefly, maybe 2 episodes ago, but it was at the very end of the episode, and maybe you only had 5 minutes to expand on it. I'll read the email to you. He says, "Hey Gary, I've been watching a bunch of your videos, been learning a lot. Most recently, the Paul Spacey episode. The monopoly in youth soccer was kind of surprising. Well, I can see how being a feeder into the MLS system could be an advantage. If you start from first principles, is that really necessary for a successful league? Shouldn't it be possible for the outsiders to form their own league? And if the quality of the output is eventually equal or better too, why would anyone care what MLS thinks?" And he then goes on to say, "There's probably a ton of context I'm missing, but I think it's an important problem to work on, and I'd love to figure out if there's a way to break the monopoly. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on FIFA training and solidarity payments. In the long run, I think it might be possible to work around USSF obstruction, which might provide a future source of revenue to clubs that prove they can develop players." So, Gary, when you did respond to this last time, you said, if somebody wanted to go and make their own league, they can't, right? Because of all these restrictions and guidelines from the governing body. Somebody's comment to that was, "Oh, Gary, your answer on making your own league is soft because they won't let you." But I don't think they truly understand that it's basically impossible to accomplish this. So I wanted to give you a chance to, expand on your thoughts and really dive deeper into this subject.
So there's two things. There's starting a league at a professional soccer league, and then there's starting a youth soccer league. I think they're referring to the youth or the pro. I'm not. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Let's see. So
Well, I'll cover both.
he starts by saying a feeder into the MLS system. So I think he's
Oh,
referring
okay.
to the youth at first.
Yeah. So I mean, let's kick it off right there. A feeder into the MLS system. Well, why the hell do you want to be a feeder into the MLS system? Why should you be a feeder into the MLS system? Why should you be some what's the word I'm looking for? Why should you be some business or organization or person or whatever that basically is working for MLS? That's what a feeder is. It's like, so that already on its face kind of, in a sense, contradicts the whole statement of, well, if you do it better than MLS, then what, you literally just said being a feeder to MLS. So how are you doing it better than MLS? And even if you did not want to be a feeder into MLS, you have no choice but to be a feeder into MLS because you yourself don't have professional clubs or a professional club to feed your own players into, or your own fans into, your own supporters into, your own families into. And so you're forever subjugated to being a second class, third class, fourth class citizen in the ecosystem. So on its face, you can't do it, Benny, unless you are able to have a professional club of your own in which you feed into. But let's put that thing aside for a second and let's kind of go through the little mental exercise of starting your own youth league. You can, sure, you can start your own youth league. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. But let's assume that you have Elon Musk money, okay? And you're like, "Oh, I got Elon Musk money. So I can just deploy all that capital and hire a bunch of people and hire a bunch of people maybe away from the existing establishment, to help me get a league up and running. I can give all kinds of incentives to perhaps get clubs that compete in other leagues to come to my league, all that sort of stuff." Okay, let's play that out a little bit. How big can you actually get? First off, it's going to take you forever. It's not, you can't get this thing up and running instantaneously and have it have the prestige and the brand and the history of, producing men's national team players or producing professionals. All that stuff's going to take years and years and years. Okay. If not venturing into a decade plus. And what do you think is going to happen through all those years that you're trying to build this thing? MLS is going to realize, oh, okay, we have competition. We can't let them eat our lunch, so to speak, and take over everything that we own. So they're not just going to sit idly by. They're going to react to that. And how are they going to react to that? Well, for one, maybe they will let's be benevolent, Benny, or let's be charitable. Maybe they will get better themselves. They're MLS Next Youth League. They have MLS Next and then MLS Next 2 now, right? A second tier to the youth. Maybe they'll get even better. And so the clubs that play there and the families that reside there and the kids that reside there won't leave. Okay. Option number two, which is the more sinister one, the one that I and many of us in the ecosystem know for a fact is how MLS operates. They'll just tap on the shoulder of US Soccer, the governing body of the ecosystem, the regulator, and say, hey, US Soccer, which is basically speaking to themselves because they control US Soccer, right? They'll be like, hey, we need to make up some new rules about whatever. I can't even concoct it in my mind. Some new rules, territory right rules, or who knows what they'll invent that benefits MLS's league and not the upstart league. And over the course of time, you're going to erode and die. This is just what, and I'm not just saying this theoretically. It's happened countless times, Ben. Like, how many times do leagues pop up and then fade away, or pop up and never go anywhere, or pop up and then consolidate and are merged into the existing establishment? It happens constantly, Benny. So if you think that you're going to come around and just usurp the monopoly that has regulatory capture, you're on drugs. And with respect to the guy commenting, oh, that's a weak answer, or whatever, soft. What? It's not soft speaking the truth. Okay. And if you want to call people soft who never take any risk, or put their money where their mouth is. And if you do your homework, that's the antithesis of what we've done. We have put our money where our mouth is. We have put our reputation on the line like a motherfucker. We were on a meteoric rise to the very top of the food chain, so long as we bow down, kiss the ring of power, be a bootlicker, be a brown noser, and we'd be multimillionaires at this point. Okay, but we said no. So that's the opposite of being soft. Speaking the truth is not being soft.
Yeah.
And this is the reality, Benny. You just can't compete. You can't compete. There's no shame in saying, hey, I want to start an electric vehicle company and take on Tesla. Cool. Go for it. It's going to be a 99.99% failure rate. Maybe somebody like Rivian, get off of the ground and try and have, billionaire backers or wealth funds coming in. You're up against an entrenched multi-year, multi-decade power that in many cases has regulatory capture. So will one day a monopoly fall and die and somebody else will rise from the ashes and take them over? Yes, this happens throughout the course of history. But the cycles, right, are multi-decade cycles, are century level cycles. How long has Ford Motor Company been around? How long has Coca-Cola been around? And those two examples, they don't have full regulatory capture of their industries. They are not monopolies, and they're still around and super powerful. How long has JP Morgan Chase been around in the banking system? How long have these big banks been around? Have you seen any community bank rise from the ashes and usurp them? No. And those things are less powerful, in my opinion, than MLS in this country, because MLS has total control and a total monopoly over the whole fucking thing.
Yeah. So Gary, two things. One, how do you take down this monopoly? And the other thing is, if let's say, I know you mentioned the youth league, but if you wanted to start your own pro league, in theory, couldn't you just start your own like governing body and kind of ignore US soccer and say, hey, no, this is completely different. We have our own, not federation, but we have our own rules and we have a president. Like US soccer has nothing to do with this. In
This is at the
theory.
pro level.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
a
at the
pro
pro
level.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're screwed because nobody's going to join your league, and no good players, no top players are going to join your league, because if you're not sanctioned, right, there's a hierarchy in football. There's FIFA at the very top, and then there's the confederations, and then there's the countries federations. That's the kind of like the hierarchy, and all the regulations and rules are set from those entities. So if I say I'm going to create something outside of that structure, outside of US soccer, cool, you can do it. But then your players, first off, your league's not going to be sanctioned, so you're not going to be able to compete in official FIFA competitions or official US soccer competitions. For example, the US Open Cup or things like that. You're not allowed to because you're not sanctioned by the regulatory body. Two, your players, aren't going to be recognized as being footballers within the regulatory structure. So they're not going to be able to be called up to youth national teams or national teams or anything whatsoever unless they leave, right? And kind of like are sanctioned players, right? Or carded players. And so, fine, form your little recreational thing and do your little hobby on the side. But if you fit outside the structure, you just can't do it, man. The only alternative would be again, Elon Musk money, Elon Musk power and influence type stuff where you gather a coalition together maybe and you maybe petition FIFA and say, hey, we are starting a new federation in America. Yes, there's US soccer, but we are also now going to be a federation and we want to be recognized officially, legitimately by the governing body as being a federation with all the rights and privileges that come with it. And I don't know if that exists or has existed in the history of global soccer. There's always a first time for everything. Is it possible? I don't know. But I bet your ass that the whole world of soccer is going to be against you doing that. All the entrenched powers are going to lobby and try to not make that happen. So when they go ahead and like vote in FIFA, or something like that. Hey, do we sanction this body or doing? Okay, everybody's going to vote against you.
Yeah. So Gary, how do you bring down the monopoly? How do you beat them? Because with everything that you're saying, if you want to have any type of career in football, whether it be as a player, a coach, a franchise owner, if you can't beat them, you got to join them, right? So what's the solution here?
The solution is education, Benny. All these super powerful corporations or entities that I mentioned moments ago, they rely on the people. The people are the one that give them the power. The people are the one who have the purse and the money in the wallet that they're trying to tap into. So the people are the key. And you need kind of some sort of revolt in a certain way from the people, but that'll only happen if the people are educated, fully educated in all the things that we discussed and some, and understand, especially parents, right? Because they're very powerful, especially if they understand that their kids are being effed so bad by this structure, like royally screwed. And we have to give them a lot of examples as to how that is indeed the case. The problem is many a times parents aren't unified or united and coaches aren't unified and united and they're all doing their own thing. And so when they themselves get screwed and they finally recognize they're being screwed, they scream out into the void. There is no organization that kind of brings everybody together and forms a power block, so to speak. So they'll yell and scream a little bit into the void, into social media, or complain into their inner circles, and then their kids graduate youth soccer or fade away from youth soccer, and then that disgruntled person who recognized something about the system just goes away. It doesn't exist anymore. But there's always a new sucker. So that person who just graduated from the youth system or from soccer in general, they graduate, but there's always a new, naive father, mother, family bringing their kid into soccer for the very first time. They're like, oh, this is cool. This is great or whatever. And then 5 years later, they're like, oh, some of this stuff is kind of something stinks around here, And they read articles that are like, oh, well, what stinks is pay to play and it's evil and coaches don't care about development and clubs don't care. But they're not getting to the root of it. So their education is not correct. It's fundamentally flawed. Some of them, depending on the sources of information that they consume, might eventually graduate, if I can say that, to see, oh, the root of all of this is this monopoly thing that's going on, right? But again, by the time they get there, because there's so much misinformation from the mainstream American soccer journalists and mainstream American soccer, freelancers or media or influencers, by the time they get there, their kids are almost about to graduate and then they age out and there's a new sucker born. I think we're getting better. I think more and more of the population is getting educated at an earlier and faster pace, thanks to technology, thanks to a lot of growing influence of independence out there. But we're not there yet, Ben. And let me tell you how the education ends up potentially toppling the establishment. We already see a little bit of evidence of it with the rise of, say, USL. So if people are very educated, they start speaking truth to power online, and MLS has less support then. Not as many people are willing to be a part of it anymore. And so they look at USL maybe as an alternative, and they start supporting some USL stuff, and they start supporting some USL centered narratives. Yeah. And they start egging on USL. Hey, yeah, promotion relegation. That's what we want. That's what we want. That's what we want. Right. There's this bubble that's been resonating for years now. And it gets to the point where USL gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they're talking about promotion relegation. Who knows if they'll implement their own version of it, which, by the way, I need to inject the caveat for new listeners out there. It's not true promotion and relegation if a league is doing promotion and relegation. That's just like pseudo promotion relegation within their own corporate governance, right? True promotion relegation is an open market ecosystem, open system, completely open. It's not, oh, USL does promotion relegation or MLS does promotion relegation. No, that's a closed system still. But nonetheless, you see how an educated public is kind of forcing the hand of the MLS would-be competitor to say, okay, we're gonna try maybe to do something like this. And so that ends up being a very powerful thorn in the side of the monopoly. And it's hard for them to stop, even though they have US Soccer in the pocket, because all the people will really see the true colors, right? If somehow US Soccer came out and said, no, 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 USL, you can't do that. You know, then it's everybody's gonna be like, whoa, that's like mass level, that's blatant corruption out in the open. So how does this all play out, Ben? I don't know. USL could potentially become so powerful, and the movement becomes so powerful in the process that we kind of force the hand of the federation at that point. Maybe it's enough to elevate truly independent leaders to take over the federation and not be MLS bitches anymore. And then the federation, in conjunction with FIFA, or something and in conjunction with MLS and cooperation, it's like, hey guys, we have no more choice. We have to open everything up now. So, but it starts with education of the fan base, man, of the general public.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you brought up, Gary, and something that I never even thought about because you're right. I think when players and families start getting to the later stages of the career, 14, 15, 16, and then they start to open their eyes to what's really going on, like you said, but by that point, it's too late. And then yeah, if they don't have a kid in the ecosystem anymore, like why do they even care anymore? So no, dude, it sounds like we need to start sending some 3-4-3 plants to like U6 games, bro. U6, U7 games. Just, quick chatter on the sideline, the parents, like, hey,
Well, maybe part of the master plan is the 343 master class, because
yeah,
we're trying to get, it's a parent education platform. We're trying to get the parents in as soon as possible. And obviously the aim is to help their kids and help them get better and better at the kids' development and learn how to navigate the American soccer ecosystem. But in the process of doing so, they get educated in all this other stuff,
right.
because now they're kind of in our world at that point. So they get in early, and maybe by the time the kid is 12, 13, 14, they're very sophisticated parents at
Yeah.
that point.
No, maybe in future, like new modules or lessons in the masterclass, it's all about like how MLS works, all the behind the scenes that because you really have to I think now it's easier to find more information about that stuff, but if you're just like an average fan, you're not really gonna be digging deep looking into that type of stuff. You see, oh, here's a local club team, my kid's gonna play for it, but, imagine if parents had access to what's really going on behind the scenes. I think it would open their eyes a lot.
Totally, man. Totally. And it ties into the second comment there about training compensation and solidarity payments and all that sort of stuff that youth parents don't really think about because it doesn't impact them directly. But rest assured, it does impact you. You just don't see it. You don't see how laws and the regulations at the very top of the food chain, the FIFA food chain, the CONCACAF food chain, the US Soccer food chain, the MLS food chain. Imagine you're a parent of an 11-year-old, you go taking on the training, playing on the weekends. They don't think about that stuff as impacting them, but it absolutely does, Ben. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the education process.
Yeah.
It's curious. It's curious. I don't want to go take us on this tangent. I want you to drive the conversation, but I only read the headlines. The Club World Cup is coming here next year. Wait, next year? When does it start? It starts now, right?
Yeah, it starts soon. Then,
Yeah.
less than 2 weeks.
And so I saw some headlines the past couple days about how the Seattle Sounders
Yeah.
players are making a big fuss and a ruckus about, hey, like what the f? We're going to be playing in this Club World Cup, and we aren't going to really gain any sort of economic windfall or any fair sort of economic windfall. All of the economics is going to go to MLS, and it's like, yeah, motherfucker, because players don't even know all this stuff, man. Players just play for the most part. They
Yeah.
start seeing some things here or there, but they don't really get it because it's not their job to really get it. But some of them start realizing, oh shit, like that's how this works. Like, wow, like I'm getting royally screwed over here.
Oh, yeah.
It's curious.
No, yeah, before the game, Gary, they're wearing shirts that says, Club World cash grab. And then I don't know if you saw this, but after the game, the owner, this guy's name is Adrian Hanauer, I think. He
Mhm.
came into the locker room and like ripped them. The article was like he angrily addressed the team in a profanity laced, post game address. Like it just goes to show you that all the owners are in bed with MLS and they can't say anything bad about it. Otherwise they'll be fucked. Dude.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I've only read the headlines. I haven't read in depth what's going on there for real, or I haven't heard from my peeps up in Seattle, what's happening directly. But I just want to emphasize something you mentioned for folks out there. These are not clubs. The Seattle Sounders team is not a club. It is a team of MLS. MLS has 30 teams. They're all one club. MLS is the club, guys. MLS is the club. Seattle, Dallas, New York, Houston, whatever, Austin, those are teams of the club that is MLS. We really need to wrap our heads around that. And for folks again who are new and stuff, do you know that all the professional player contracts of the players that play in MLS, the contracts are with MLS. The contracts of the Seattle Sounders players are with MLS. They are not with the Seattle Sounders. They are not contracted by the Seattle Sounders, guys. Okay? It is not a club. We need to really understand this.
Yeah. Well, that's why MLS does such a good job of controlling the narrative, because they have all these teams in the Club World Cup, but really it's any team that's in the league and in this tournament, it's the fucking MLS World Cup for them, bro. It's
Yeah,
insane. It's insane. And MLS franchise wins, all of MLS wins, bro.
totally. Totally. That's why they're all in bed together. That's why all the quote unquote journalists, so-called journalists, they all say the same thing. They all are super supportive, right? They can't do anything about it because MLS, I have a hard time even calling it a league, honestly, also. Okay. I'm really trying to figure out, like, is this thing even really a true league? Because a league is supposed to be a container, just an organizational container to host completely independent businesses, which are clubs. That's what it's supposed to be. And the clubs are supposed to merit their way into the container and out of the container, right? Because they're all independents. But no, this is not that. Okay.
Yeah. No, you start calling it MES, bro. Major Entertainment Soccer.
For sure. For sure. And that's one of the ways that they kind of get away with their narrative, right? Is they convince everybody, "Oh, it's just a game. Everybody's don't take it so seriously. Gary, why are you getting so heated or so passionate? It's just the game. It's not life or death. It's not war, something like that." But and people buy that hook, line, and sinker, but everybody's missing the point. And conveniently, that's their narrative. This is a business. This is an ecosystem that exists. People make livelihoods in this industry that we call sports, in this industry that we call soccer. So people's livelihoods are on the line. The way people can comport themselves by working in this space, is heavily and heavy-handed influenced by all of this stuff. So people's lives are affected. And if it's your child, it's your children, well, guess what? Your current situation is heavily impacted by that. And I'm not just talking about sporting wise, economics as well, or cultural or political or social. It's all connected, man. You want to know why you're paying $5,000 a year for your 12-year-old kid to play, or even if it's just 2,000, or even if it's just eight, whatever, the whole pay to play thing. The reason pay to play is as pervasive, is as intense, is as expensive, is as universal, ubiquitous as it currently is because these youth clubs are forced into having that business model because of the monopoly, because they can't have first teams, because they can't have first teams playing in an open ecosystem. Because since that's the case, they're not incentivized to have a business model of player development for their first teams. So if they don't have first teams, which to develop players for, what's the business model then? I have to charge people, plain and simple. And for folks to say, "Oh, that's why we need training compensation and solidarity payments." No, guys, no, that's another big lie. That is not true. If a player happens to graduate and become a professional player, first off, whatever youth club quote unquote developed him, the amount of money that you're going to get, the windfall from having developed that one in a and 10,000 players that you get at your club once every 5 years or 7 years, the amount of windfall is peanuts with respect to your operating budget. So if you're a club that has 20 or 30 teams, youth club, 20 or 30 teams, I don't know, you have an operating budget of several $1 million perhaps or something like that. The windfall that you get from having Christian Pulisic, or I mean, that's outrageous, right? Saying Christian Pulisic, that's like a global superstar, the best American ever. But the windfall you'll get, let's say you got $1 million somehow, okay? Because Christian Pulisic got transferred to Chelsea or whatever the case may be. Let's say you got $1 million. That's not enough money to have the youth club level up or to have the youth club subsidize, say, "Oh, nobody gets to pay anymore. Everything's for free." They might be able to do that for a handful of teams for maybe a year or two, and that's it. What are you going to crank out Christian Pulisic's every single year? Right? It's not going to happen, guys. So training compensation solidarity payments is not the mechanism by which American soccer changes or pay to play changes in any respect. And let's be very clear. Most all youth soccer clubs in the United States are never going to have a professional soccer player come out of their ranks. And if they do, it'll be like a USL player or an MLS player. You ain't getting money, guys. So this whole notion that, "Oh, we need training compensation, solidarity payments," nonsense.
Yeah. No, you saw, I'm sure you saw, Efra just got signed to Chivas, and
Mhm.
somebody had made a post on X saying like, "Oh, Efra just signed for 7 million. The Galaxy is set to receive, 1.5 million or something like that." And then you see in the comments all the fans of the Galaxy like, "This is great. This is amazing. This is gonna allow us to buy a new player and get out of last place." I'm like, dude, guys, so 1 million is, like you said, it's nothing in compared to your operating costs. Like, that's nothing for them, dude. That's
It means
basically
absolutely
already gone.
nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me go to xthedata.com really quick. I'll tell you kind of what the salary budget for the Galaxy looks like. So let me see. LA Galaxy. And this is not to the dollar, obviously, but it gives us a decent estimate. So in 2024, let's see, 2024, it looks like the total salary spent. by the LA Galaxy was uh, uh, north of $20 million was kind of what they paid out in salaries in 2024. So by getting $1.5 million due to Efra being sold to Chivas or something, come on, it doesn't mean anything. $1 million. Let's make simple math. 1 million out of 20 million. Okay. It's 5% of your salary budget on your pro players. It's 5%. Okay. I mean, it's not nothing, but
Yeah. Gary, maybe you can share with people what Exadata is, because you said that and people are probably like, what the hell? Like, how can I access this? Can they access it already? Well, not yet.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can go to xthedata.com and you can get all kinds of MLS salary information, historical, and it's all kind of organized well for you in graphs, in tables. On the graph, you can click on a bar or a data point, and you can drill down into further down the rabbit hole, the data rabbit hole, to check out inspect salaries of MLS players, any MLS player, and track their salary over time, and track the club's budget over time, and track everything over time.
What inspired you to build this website?
Well, I have a lot of in-house tools that aren't public to analyze the ecosystem, and this is just one thing that I built and been toying with for many, many years. And I'm like, you know what? This I should just make this thing public at some point, or at least a lot of the functionality of the stuff that I use. So I just quickly whipped out, a site so that people can go and explore it themselves.
And did you make it sound easy, bro?
Well, it's work. I'm not gonna lie, it is work, but it's part of the job, right?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you this, Gary. Is MLS basically the same as the NBA, NFL, NHL? Because within those systems, there's no promotion relegation. If you wanna have a team, you gotta buy into the franchise. Is that all the same? And it's funny because all of those leagues, like the NBA, NFL, NHL, they're considered the top league in their sport in the entire world. If you were to tell somebody, especially abroad, like, "Hey, MLS is the top league in the world," like, you get fucking laughed at. So, is it the same as all these other leagues in the US?
Only in the sense that you just described, in that it's a closed shop. Okay, so nobody can merit their way in or merit their way out. And so the business model is the same in that respect, because the way that these teams appreciate and value is simply because nobody can merit their way out or merit their way in. So you have limited supply. Things that are limited in supply are valuable. Not everything, because I don't know, I can just maybe concoct some example that is limited in supply. Nothing, really comes to mind in the moment, and it's not valuable. But these sorts of things are, right? Sports teams. So you limit the supply. There's only ever going to be 30 NBA teams or 30 NFL teams, and that's it. Maybe we'll expand one day, 10 years from now or something, and has to buy that property, but it's 30, no more. So if you want in, well, you're just going to have to bid the price up until the guy who currently owns their team says, wow, I can't say no to that, and says, sure, I'll sell it to you for $5 billion, where their price is. So in that regard, the business model is the same. That's why these MLS franchises or teams are so valuable according to Forbes. First off, who knows? That's all nonsense anyway, but it's so valuable because of this reason. It's different from NFL, NBA, NHL, all that stuff. MLS is different in that it is a single entity. So an NBA team is more like a club than an MLS team, because an NBA team is separate from the NBA itself, right? The NBA does act more like a container that hosts separate entities within it. Okay, so the Lakers are different than all the other teams. Same thing with the NFL. They're independently owned, independent entities themselves. The Rams are independent. They are not the same as the NFL itself. The NFL is just a container that hosts this particular piece of property, this team. MLS owns all the teams effectively.
Got it. So, really, MLS, the reason that they do this is to keep the power, right? But Gary, what did you think that opening the system would bring in so much more revenue, more exposure, more opportunities, and especially for the people at the top. You know, you're having more investment in the sport in your country. Wouldn't isn't that a good thing for the top owners of the league?
It depends, how you look at it, how you slice and dice it. First off, it's hard to do the counterfactual and say, "Oh, if this, then that," right? Or if it would have been this way, then this would have been the outcome. But would it have more eyeballs? Right. Yes. Would it be more competitive? Yes. That's how you get the more eyeballs. If it's completely open, would the in the different teams not be restricted by all this salary cap stuff and all these crazy rules? You can only have like first off, you wouldn't even call them DPs. So like it's not a thing anymore. It's kind of like I'm LAFC. I want to buy all these certain types of players and pay this amount of money, and that's up to me. And I do whatever the fuck I want, you know? So you're gonna be able to build super teams at that point and super clubs. So it will attract more eyeballs. TV revenue would increase. The league would grow in popularity, all these sorts of things. However, on the downside, if it's opened up like this, and meaning promotion relegation, now you don't control the scarcity anymore. Number one. Number two, so your asset valuations might not perpetually and forever go up in value with no limit in sight. Number two, if it is truly open and all these teams are now truly independent clubs of their own, they're going to compete fiercely for players. And so that bids up the salaries of the players. And so that hits your operating budget. So instead of the LA Galaxy, like I cited moments ago, having paid $22 million or $25 million in player salaries in 2024, that can skyrocket and balloon to 50 or 75 or 100 or $200 million that they expend. So maybe that blows out whatever gains that you get from TV and it being a bigger league and it being more attractive globally and all that sort of stuff. So you don't know where those curves meet, right? So you get more TV revenue, you get more eyeball, all that stuff, increased revenue, but you're getting destroyed from a salary perspective, for example, because the players now have rights and you can compete. And me, like as an agent, I can get a youth player or whatever, get a certain player there and say, "Oh, Galaxy, you don't value my player, you don't want to sign him, you don't want to meet our salary demands. Cool. How about you, Portland? How about you, Dallas? How about you, New York?" Like how and I we go through a bidding war at that point. And so the player gets to maximize their earning potential, which is not good for the owners.
Yeah. So essentially screwing over the owners and the people at the top of the franchise is I just don't understand how that they're allowed to do this. Like how are they allowed to have a single entity where they own everything? You know, it's insane to me, dude.
I mean, we have antitrust laws in this country, which are meant to prohibit monopolies from, forming or staying in power. It's just the legal system, law, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but is gray. It's fuzzy. It's not black and white like mathematics or physics or science. Or if I jump off of a cliff, 100% of the time I'm going to fall into my peril, right? The legal system is subject to interpretation. And so, and maneuvering, right? And loopholes all over the place. And so I think what has happened is MLS at its formation had very good lawyers. They understand what's allowed in this country. They saw things like Major League Baseball get an antitrust exemption, and they architected this structure, which is probably defensible in court. Yeah. And even if they were to win in court and there's appeals, you go to a higher court and a higher court, eventually you're going to end up at the Supreme Court. And nobody's taken them to the Supreme Court yet. There have been a number of lawsuits, and some have been settlements, and others like the NASL lawsuit by Franco Comiso, who's trying to go down this angle of US Soccer and MLS colluding with one another to screw any would-be competitor to MLS. NASL recently just like lost in court by some judgment and they're appealing it, so they have to go to the next higher court and keep fighting. So that obviously costs tens of millions of dollars to follow the legal path, and years and years and years and years. So what is the probability that somebody is going to take you all the way to the Supreme Court? It's very low probability that that's going to happen. So that's how they get away with it, Benny. And not to mention that MLS is owned by a huge number of billionaires with a B. So they can take on legal battles without an issue. They're like, oh yeah, want to sue us? Go ahead. And we'll get the best lawyers in the world. We'll get the best lawyers in the country, and we have money to shit with. We'll fight you in court. So it's tough, dude.
I think we got to find a way to get you get Trump on the side, bro.
Yeah, for real, for real.
Right? That will end it. Well, I don't know. I don't know what his views on the MLS are. I'm sure Don
Well,
Garber already fucking set meetings with them and shit.
well, what's curious is, like, unless you're in the space in the sports business, or specifically if we're talking soccer, in the soccer, you don't really know, right? Like,
Right.
this is what's going on. You don't really know, and especially if you've grown up here in the United States, and you grew up with the NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA. The whole promotion relegation thing, you've never really been exposed to it. It's like a foreign concept to you. So you grow up to be like Donald Trump, you're 70, and it doesn't even register. What is this promotion relegation stuff? What do we mean by open ecosystem in sports?
Yeah.
It's predominantly the soccer public here in this country that has a global perspective, that is having their eyes open for the first time in many cases. Oh, look how they do it everywhere else across the world. That's weird how we do sports here. Huh, interesting. And then they don't have somebody like me kind of bringing them along, and saying, hey, let me show you this rabbit hole. Instead, the probability is you're going to land on MLS reporters or mainstream soccer people, influencers out there, and you listen to them and you're educated by them, and you get their narrative, and then you're fucked. Like, they're like, oh, we're not Europe, dude. We're America. We don't do things like that over there. And look at the valuations of our MLS teams. They're up there with Real Madrid and Barcelona already. We're on the right track. This is how you do sports. The rest of the world doesn't know how to do sports. We do it right. That's why the NFL is number one. That's why NBA is number one. That's why NHL is number one. No, motherfucker. Those other American sports leagues are number one because nobody else in the fucking world really cares about those sports, and has taken the time, energy, effort, and investment to build a global powerhouse. The exception, there's a little chinks in the armor showing with basketball, because a lot of countries around the world do play a lot of basketball. And look, how many of the foreigners here in the NBA are the best players? Like, they've been taking over in many respects. There's a huge proportion of players in the NBA who are not from the United States. They're from elsewhere. And it's crazy. The invasion is kind of telling. Why are other countries developing better players than we're developing in basketball? Huh, interesting. Let's think about that.
It's true. I wonder if there is promotion relegation in like basketball in Spain and in Greece.
100%, dude.
It's the same.
100%. Let's go. Let's go to Grok really quick.
Because dude,
Is there
I know even like FC Barcelona has a basketball team and Madrid has a basketball team. I'm guaranteeing you it's the same way to get into the league.
Totally, totally, man. And I don't know if you saw, well, yes, there's promotion relegation system in basketball in Spain. Primarily, they're professional semi-pro leagues, and they go through the whole tier system. I'm sure it is all across Europe and all across everywhere. That's how you do sports. That is what sports is. Sports is supposed to be like the ultimate meritocracy. Are you good, better than the next guy? Is your team better than the next team? How can you possibly know that unless you have an open competition? If it's
True.
closed and you always have the same teams, it's not a meritocracy. How do you know who are the best? How do you know who are the best players? How do you know who are the best teams? How do you know who are the best business executives that operate a club? Who are the best market? Yeah, how do you know? You don't know. You don't know if the New England Patriots, their dynasty was the absolute, it couldn't have been better. Let me put it to you that way. Like you have no way of knowing whether the NFL teams could be even better than they are now. You have no way of knowing if the NBA teams could be even better than they are now because it's not open. People get bored. Baseball is going down the shitter because it's fucking boring as fuck. There's no competition there. And the games are like meaningless throughout the league. MLS games are meaningless. I saw some LAFC fans on X talking, oh, when they beat America to qualify for the Club World Cup, they're like, oh man, I wish we saw this sort of intensity, fight, and grit from the team when they're playing their MLS matches and stuff. Guys, hello, put two and two together. Like this game actually meant something, and MLS games don't mean shit. That you're not going to see intensity in a regular season MLS match. I mean, you'll see a little spark once in a while, maybe depending on the circumstances. But for the most part, everybody's on cruise control, going 50% on the field and 50% in training. MLS fans only get to see real competition, a sliver of it, not even the real thing either, a sliver of it when it comes to like playoff time.
Yeah.
That's when that's it.
No, I was gonna say, dude, you can tell that the games in every league here in the regular season are meaningless. And obviously, you see a huge spike of numbers of viewers when it comes time for the playoffs and then semifinals, finals. You see a massive spike because those are the only games that matter to them. But dude, there was like an MLB game the other day in Miami. It was reported like 325 people were there, bro, out of like a
Yeah,
25,000 seat stadium. They're meaningless games. And even
yeah,
this team, I forget which team it was, but I think their record is like 10-50 or something, like a historic low season. At that point in the season, like teams will just start tanking so they can have, the best pick in the next upcoming draft. Like no matter what, they're
yeah.
still gonna be in the league next year. No consequence for being shit. So it's just I don't know, dude. Sometimes after our recordings I get sad, bro. Living
Yeah.
in this ecosystem that we're in, man. Makes me wanna move to Europe, bro.
I don't know if you saw. Do you know who Duca Ferretti is? Or does it
No,
the name ring a bell? So
no.
Duca Ferretti, very, very famous coach. He's older now. Coached a huge portion of his career in Mexico. I think he still lives in Mexico. Is he even coaching now? Who Duca Ferretti? Hold on. I'm gonna sound really ignorant for not knowing all the Liga MX coaches. Duca Ferretti. Hold on, Ben. Give me a second here. Yeah, Duca Ferretti. Okay, so last team he coached was 2023 Cruz Azul. Anyways, he's coached everywhere: Mexico, Guadalajara, Toluca, Morelia, UNAM, Juarez. Um, Recently, when LAFC beat America, I think that's what his response was. He was on, a talk show and talking soccer, and he is known for being hugely passionate and animated and curses up a storm. He doesn't care. He's like, "What have I been saying for all these years? The moment we got rid of promotion relegation, it all would go to shit, and it's all going to shit. And now look, it is fucking shit." Directly citing promotion relegation for Mexico's shocking results the past 10 years from a national team perspective and from a club perspective. It's embarrassing, Benny, that America lost to LAFC. Yes, it was LAFC was at home. That's a huge advantage, whatever you want. But you don't fucking lose to an MLS team, dude. Come on. That's not right. That would never happen, back when Mexican soccer was serious. But Mexican soccer, ever since they suspended or got rid of promotion relegation, it's not serious competition anymore. It's over. They're done.
Yeah. I would even probably put money on it that the game at the LAFC stadium was probably split 50-50 in terms of the fans. Bro, there's so many America fans in LA, Southern California. Basically kind of like you're at home, but no, why do you know why Mexico went away from promotion relegation?
I mean, it's a classic response like they have here. Oh, the lower clubs, the second tier clubs, they don't have the appropriate infrastructure or the wealth or the money, right, to make it a good competition or to make it a stable competition. So for stability reasons, we're going to suspend promotion relegation until those lower tier clubs get their act together, and and build up their infrastructure, but all a steaming pile of bullshit, Ben.
Yeah. Because they were promotion relegation from the beginning of their league, no?
I don't know when the league started and what it looked like, but as long as I've been around, yes, promotion relegation for sure.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right, dude. Look at the level of the Mexico national team now. Look at the level of the league. Like I have a lot of Mexican friends that say that they don't even watch the games anymore. One, because the level of competition's not there. And two, they're like, dude, I swear this is like rigged by the cartel or something. Every time I think my team's gonna win, a fucking mysterious red card happens or something like that, dude. So
Something for the audience to consider as well. Another angle, another little nugget to noodle on. Imagine if the World Cup was a closed shop. Like you couldn't earn your way into the World Cup. Imagine it was, FIFA or whoever, the organization, whatever business decides, you know what? These are going to be the 24 or the 32 countries in the World Cup forever. Period. End of story. And imagine that the United States was not one of those 24 or 32 teams that is allowed to compete in the World Cup. How would you feel as an American soccer supporter, American soccer fan, enthusiast, passionate about the game, the sport, if that was the circumstance? You would be like, this is fucked up. That's not right at all. That's fucking massive bullshit, massive corruption, unacceptable, right? Completely unacceptable. Well, that is what we have in our country, Benny. It's exactly that. Exactly that. And also, let's pull on this thread a little bit more. What does that do to the popularity of the U.S. men's national team? It tanks it because what's the point? What's its purpose? Who gives a fuck? Oh, but Gary, like you can compete in CONCACAF. CONCACAF has its own little competition, and you can do the Gold Cup. You can play against Panama and Mexico and Honduras and Costa Rica. And so go and support it. What are you doing? Support the men's national team. No, it destroys your whole will and desire to even be a part of it. Like, what is the fucking point? There is none. That is what we deal with here. So when these MLS bozos or indoctrinated people, some of them, bless their heart, they just don't know any better. They're like, oh, if you want to change American soccer, go and support your local team. Go and support the USL team. Go and support, like, otherwise you're just a malcontent, guys, what is the point of going and supporting my USL team or my local whatever? Like, what is the point? You're okay. You're going to win the USL championship. Okay, now what? Nobody cares.
seriously, dude. I remember when Orange County won. What was it, like 2 or 3 years ago? And for like one day, it was like, CFC won, and the next day, nobody nobody cares.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, dude.
And the one open competition we do have, which is over 100 years old, the US Open Cup. You saw what's happened the past couple of years. MLS controlling US soccer try to completely pull out of the US Open Cup and kind of render the whole competition meaningless. That is the one competition where you get to see, amateur players kind of earning their way into it and see how they do, against the teams. And you get to see the third division teams and see how they do against MLS teams or the second division teams. And it's open. It's a laissez-faire sort of open thing. And it brings a lot of excitement when USL teams clash out against MLS teams. This year, they weren't very successful, but over the course of its history, USL teams have beat multiple MLS teams multiple times, and it's incredibly competitive and it's awesome. And MLS wants no part of it.
Dude, Gary, I want you to respond to one comment from our latest episode. We talked a lot about the USMNT. This guy says, "Dude, are you really comparing Argentina to USMNT? How the hell do you do that? This ain't 1978. Players are way bigger and stronger than they were in those days. The game is way more physical and demanding. Pulisic ain't got to put his career on the line for some made up pride shit. And the problem with the USMNT is bigger than just one guy. Let's see what somebody else can do."
Why are you bringing up 1978? I can just bring up I could just bring out right now, modern day. Argentine national team players play 90 minutes, play way more minutes than Pulisic, or way more in demanding club situations. and they get called to the national team, they drop everything. They go to the national team right now. They're like, oh no, my pinky, I'm gonna stay home. No, or anybody, the Brazilian players, the Spanish players. Again, I bring up that chart today, not 1978. Today, there's countless national team players of various countries who have played way more minutes than Pulisic, and they report for duty. What are we doing? What are we talking about? This is fucking. What are we talking about?
I knew you would respond like that, bro. I laugh when I saw it. How about this one though, Yuri? No, one more. Right? I know the audience will mind. Appreciate someone calling out the scam of US soccer, but I expect more from both brothers. Fortunately, from my experience in pro cycling, encountering all the same roadblocks, I've been able to help my U20 son to navigate the shit show because he has real talent. But when I send my kid's CV to you because Brian has no published email and you give me the same polite gaslight reply, I tend to think you need to do more to fight the shit show. Check your inbox from 12/7/24 for Joey.
So off the cuff, I heard pro cycling. First off, I think we need to make a decision. First, I don't know anything about pro cycling, okay? But I think we need to draw a very clear distinction between team sports and individual sports. Because if we're talking about like tennis or golf or these sorts of things, it's much more open. It's not a closed shop. Like you can earn your way to the top in individual sports, and it's kind of undeniable. And the stats are undeniable because if you're a solo guy, the win-loss column is a direct reflection of your capabilities. But if you're a person in a soccer team, the win-loss column of the soccer team itself does not directly translate to you as the individual. So there's a much greater meritocracy in solo sports, even though powerful sporting organizations control like golf or tennis or cycling or whatever. There's more of a meritocracy there. It's undeniable. So it's kind of apples and oranges, Benny, number one. Number two, regarding he sent me an email or something. I think, I think, look, I want to be very considerate. I get a lot of fucking emails, Ben. I get a lot of emails. I get a lot of emails saying, look at my son, look at my son. Here's a video, here's a full length video, or the highlight videos, or all this, or long Shakespearean novels telling me about their kid and their circumstances and stuff. It's just impossible for me to keep up with everything. And I don't even know what he means by gaslighting response because I try to respond to as many people as possible. So I don't know what I even responded to this guy. I don't know. I don't know who this is. I'd have to look up. He mentioned a date for the email. And I probably respond the same way I respond to almost everybody. It's like, I cool. Thank you for sharing all this information, your story, your kid, and every parent's gonna say their kid is the fucking best thing ever. But I how am I gonna judge how can I properly judge your situation? I can't. What do you want me to do? You want me to grab your son and get him opportunities somewhere? Like, first off, again, I can't tell how good the kid is. Number one. Number two is put yourself in my shoes. One, what's in it for me? And if I actually did this for every person, it doesn't scale, dude. Like if I happen to get everybody who reaches out to me for help and I go and place the kid somewhere and help them, it's irrelevant. It makes zero difference to the ecosystem. Zero. It makes a huge difference to the individual, but exactly zero difference to changing the macro picture of the ecosystem. And that is what I care about. I care about influencing the macro. So just imagine all this plates I'm spinning too, Ben. I got two businesses. I teach physics. I've got all kinds. I got some sort of personal life, a little bit. I'm supposed to have, and now I'm going to add more to my plate. You know how much work is involved, Benny, in trying to get a player an opportunity, even a player that is blue chip, widely known, has a lot of pedigree, is very good. You believe in him. It's not easy opening doors. So to open the door for somebody who's not a blue chip national team player, youth national team ID camp, even who isn't on MLS academies or isn't in the best leagues, who nobody knows who you are, it's virtually impossible to help you. I'm sorry. I mean, I got to be sincere. It's not totally impossible because a lot of it is based on reputation as well. because if somebody that I respect in the ecosystem reaches out, hey Gary, I have this player, like blah blah blah, and I haven't seen him, or I don't need to vet that much because somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing is telling me, hey, I have this player, right? So players can be helped for sure, but it's not easy.
All right, dude. The 12/7/24. Check your email. Bro. I want to see what you said to this guy, dude.
Yeah, but it really sucks getting a comment like that because if I took the time to respond to you,
Yeah.
that means I that means I actually.
Bro, you could easily just ignore those, dude. Easily.
Yeah, but it's not just because that sounds kind of douchey or a dickhead. Like I took the time,
Oh,
but
right.
my time is valuable. Number one, and I took the time to actually give a thoughtful response because I rarely just respond. I'll get out of my. I get out of here. I don't want to talk to you, right? Because if I'm going to do that, it's better to not respond at all, right? If I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
going to fuck somebody off. So if I actually responded to you, I actually sat down and thought about things and put in time, energy, and effort to give a thoughtful response. So it kind of sucks when you get a comment back like this from somebody who you did that for. But it's not enough. I get it. He wants his kid to be. I can't help your kid, man. Sorry, dude.
And he also wants Brian to invite him to the first team.
Come on, man. Come on.
All right, bro. Sorry, I made you sad, bro.
No, you like triggering me at the end of the episodes, dude. I like it.
All right, dude. That's good stuff, man.
All right.
A lot of good value here.
Let's call it a wrap on this one. Thank you as always, Benny. Got to go walk the dogs, and then I got to go do a whole bunch of non-soccer things, unfortunately. And then after I do the non-soccer things, it's back to soccer. That's my life.
Yeah. You should find a way to make the problems that you guys are solving about soccer, dude.
Wait, what?
Like the problems that you guys are working on in class that you have your students work on,
Oh,
put
oh,
them put them in somehow in soccer. Like the
that.
velocity of a shot or
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I mean that can be done. The department chair approached me couple years back. He's like, "Hey, Gary, how about maybe we offer like a general ed type course? It says the physics of sports." This is a true story. He approached me. Maybe we can develop a course, the physics of sports. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. But I thought my background processes, and then I told him like, you know how long it takes to develop a course from scratch and one that really doesn't exist on top of it, and you have to start from nothing from ground. It's a lot of work, Benny. It's a lot of work. But you're right. There's all kinds of things that can be done. I thought about it too. You can talk about concepts such as pressure, yeah, but actually quantify it. So you have a rectangular grid and you look at the density of players in particular locations of the grid and you can quantify what is the pressure in certain regions of space, and you can actually probably do this now with all the data tracking that exists at the professional game. I probably download quite a bit of that data and come up with pressure metrics and educate the students the concept of pressure and then relate it to the real world and what real atmospheric pressure, for instance, actually means. And they'll get it, you know, but all kinds of stuff that can be done for sure.
yeah, dude. I would sign up for that.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like the goal because, the physics departments across the world, right, are relatively small compared to all other departments, especially here in the United States. Few people uh, take physics. I think our education system, elementary and high school, scare people away many a times, and it doesn't have the reputation it deserves because scientists in general and physicists in particular aren't very good marketers. They're there trying to solve the puzzles of the universe. That's what their passion is. They usually don't give a shit about the politics. They don't give a shit about marketing the subject or marketing the field. And the few that say, "Oh yeah, I want to wave the flag for physics or mathematics," when they go out there and try to educate the public on it, they're not good at it. They're not charismatic. They're not enticing. And so it gets a bad reputation. We get small departments. So full circle, the department chair is like, oh, but if we did like the physics of sport, that can attract a broader audience into the department itself.
Yeah, true. I think it did. I think if I saw Oppenheimer, the movie
Mhm.
I told you about when I was in high school, I might have went down a physics path, bro. Or even
Yeah.
there's a movie called The Imitation Game. It's about this like
I
British
think I've
guy.
seen that.
That's a badass movie, dude. Where they try and break the Nazi code Enigma, and they use this guy's use. Have
Oh.
you seen
Oh,
that one
yeah,
or
yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I forget the actor's name.
Benedict Cumberbatch, something like that. But yeah, incredible movie, bro. Imitation
Yeah,
Game.
yeah, I think it's the story of Alan Turing,
Yeah,
infamous,
Alan Turing.
like the father of computer science, basically.
Yeah, you seen the movie?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. How am I gonna Alan Turing, the
Well, I
GOAT.
just like movie. I've seen that movie like six. But no, I was saying if I
That's ki
seen it earlier, I would be a physics guy right now, bro.
Okay, well, we gotta do something about that, man. Make American education great again.
All right, bro. Good stuff, dude.
Alright, thank you, Benny.